It's that time of year when we just need a good retrospective. So here are the best books that I read in 2024. Hi, my name is MK Williams. I'm an author and I love sharing my insights about all things books and publishing with you. Before I get into the details about today's topic, don't forget to subscribe. You'll be notified when I put out new videos every week about publishing, making a career being an author, now being a mompreneur. I just got to put out so many disclaimers. So, I did not read every book that was written or published in 2024. I had a very specific list that I was planning to work through. I did deviate from that list. So, if your favorite book was published this year, then I either didn't read it or I did read it and it wasn't for me. I'm not shading anybody by not including them on this list. I generally believe that the energy you put out is the energy you get back. And I am not trying to put out any shady energy. I'm just trying to report back on what I read and what I really enjoyed. Because if you like to read the books I like to read, you may like these too. Second, making a really intentional list helped me to cull my massive TBR list and ask, do I really want to read this? Read all backlist titles. I didn't read all frontlist titles. It was definitely a mix. And I think there are books that I found on my Goodreads and my Storygraph as want to read lists that I was like, do I want to read this? I've read other books similar. I've read other books by this author and I didn't love them. Do I want this story in my brain matter? I do think as an author, I benefit from reading really great novels that are really well done because I think it does help to elevate my craft. I think I do learn from reading books that I feel maybe aren't as good for different reasons because I think that teaches me what not to do, but I don't want to read too many books where I feel like I don't want to write like this. I think if I read too much of that, it will seep into my writing in a way maybe I don't like. So I do try to be really intentional. Now, I'm also cutting this off at December 21st because in order to record it and edit it before the year ends, I obviously haven't stopped reading for this year. So if I do read additional really awesome books, maybe I'll put out a second version of this, of the final 10 days of 2024 awesome books. But the books I'm reading right now, I think I will continue to like them. I do not think I will love them. I don't know if they would make this list that I would stop everything and re record it. Now, I had five categories for reading this year. It was health, parenting, craft or writing career, research, as in research I'm doing for my next novel. So that included nonfiction books as well as fiction, reading comps and everything, and then just fun. Now, these categories worked for me this year. I am planning to use them again next year. I'll be interested to see how these categories evolve over time. I do think eventually they will. Now, again, these are the books that I'm going to list that resonated the most with me. I enjoyed them. I couldn't put them down. I enthusiastically recommended them and kept bringing them up all year. Um, Now, I read these books in the order of which I was most excited for them. So I had a lot of wins in the beginning of the year and then not so much. So I do think that goes to show I am pretty spot on knowing I think I'm really going to like this book. I was so excited to read it. It lived up to my expectations. That wasn't always the case. Now, I am going to start with non-fiction first. First of all, I love fiction. I write fiction. As a parent and someone with a chronic illness, I realized I kept diving into fiction to escape reality. And I did need some nonfiction to help me with specific pain points of wanting to be a better parent and homeschooler and wanting to empower myself as a patient to be able to have better conversations with my medical team. So, that said, most of the nonfiction on my list, I did end up DNFing. The thing with traditionally published nonfiction is it's usually sold on a concept or pitch and then written after the contract is signed. So a really strong book description and title sells the book for a contract. What I experienced was the downside of this. So great title, great description, book was blah. So that was really disappointing, but I did read some very fantastic books, and I'm going to tell you about two of those most fantastic nonfiction books that I literally could not shut up about this year. I think once a month I was bringing up one or both of these as recommendations. People could not make me shut up about these books. Okay, the first one was Immune by Philip Detmer, and then there was Allergic by Teresa MacPhail. Now, as somebody with two autoimmune conditions, these two books were so informational and empowering to just know more about what is going on in my body, what's working and what isn't. I really truly enjoyed these books from that medical point of view. I am a bit of a nerd. I think Immune was much more like a fun textbook to read, and maybe that's not selling you on it. It had beautiful illustrations. He described the processes of what's going on with the immune system so well that I felt like I could explain it to other people. And I think that's the point of a really good textbook, is to learn something. Allergic, I will say I was hooked after the first chapter. It was very fascinating. It was very interesting. And I think anybody who has an allergy or knows somebody with an allergy really should read it, just to kind of understand what people with allergies are going through. I really loved it. And she talked about food allergies, skin allergies, as well as asthma. So it was really, really informative. Now, I am going to give honorable mentions to The Creative Way by Rick Rubin. Loved it. I have it on my wish list for Christmas. It is not yet Christmas. My birthday has passed in December. It's not yet Christmas. We will see if it ends up under my tree. This is a book I want to own. I want to be able to read it over and over again. So I'm really, really excited. If you have not read The Creative Way by Rick Rubin, stop what you're doing and go read it. Even if you think, well, I'm not a creative person, why are you watching this channel? Because this channel is for authors, and authors are creative. But even if you feel that you aren't creative, like, you probably have creativity somewhere in your life and career, and you will just gobble this up with your eyes. It's so good. The other book I will give an honorable mention to is Good Inside by Dr. Becky Kennedy. My husband and I both read it, and now we own it, so we can go back and reference it as our child continues to grow and we're kind of in different phases of her life. So really excited about that one. Fiction, fiction, fiction. I love fiction. I read a lot of fiction. I write fiction. I'm a fiction girl. Now, for me to decide if it can make this video best of, the gauge was, could I put it down? Could I shut up about it? If the answer is no to both, then it's on this list. Okay. Now I've read a lot of really great works. The first, I like started the year with a banger, like This Is How You Lose the Time More. Just beautiful, just flowing prose for the sake of beautiful prose. I continually recommend it as a palate cleanser. Like, if you're in a reading slump, if you just want like a quick book that you can just read for the sake of loving words, read this book. Like, it's amazing. If you just need something different, read it. Like, it's so good. Plastic by Scott Guild. One of the Good Guys by Araminta Hall was very good. L. Kennedy, The Deal. I finally read it. I'm finally getting on the L. Kennedy train. So I'll probably read more of hers, but I really like The Deal. You Think It, I'll Say It by Curtis Sittenfeld. So there have been 2 times in my life as a reader that I have laughed out loud in the middle of a silent room while reading a book, and both times it was while reading Curtis Sittenfeld. The first was Eligible, and the second one was This Bad Boy. It was so good. Go read it. I'm so excited for her next collection of short stories that's coming out in 2025. Cannot wait for it. Troy Story by Carla Luna. Oh my gosh, it was so good. If you watched The Mummy and were like, this is my jam, go read Troy Story by Carla Luna. It was so good. It was so cute. Swiped by L.M. Chilton was also really good. And coming up late in the year, it was on my list for all year. I couldn't get it at the library, but I finally got to read it. The Haters by Robin Harding. So good. Like, so good. Now I'm going to give some honorable mentions for books that I loved. I was very excited to read. They did not disappoint, but I am very excited that I got to read them. One was Written by a Woman by Andrea Anderson. Written by a Woman was written by a woman. It was very good. I'm excited for her whole series there. So the next one for honorable mention was The List. It was so good. It was an early one in the year. This was the first book where I had my list for the year. It was the second week of January, and I knew that this book was. I was like, okay, if I finish this list, here's my list of books that are going to come onto the list. And so I saw it at the library, and it was just sitting there looking at me, wanting to come home with me. So I brought it home. And this was the first book where I deviated from my 2024 plan. And I'm so glad that I did. This was so good. I hope you read it. And then another one that was recommended to me as a sports romance by my agent as we were like working on this book that I'm writing that's a sports romance was The Wall of Winnipeg and Me. It was really good. So yeah, I kind of want to read more of her books now too. So those are my honorable mentions. Okay, what were the best books that you read in 2024, fiction or not fiction? Throw it out to me. I clearly have a problem with reading books off of my list, with adding too many books to my list, and I'm just going to embrace it at this point. It's just who I am. So throw your recommendations out there, mess me up for next year, and that'll be a fun time because you know what? If I love the book, I'm happy anyways. All right. If you found this video helpful, informative for book recommendations, or just entertaining, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, hit subscribe, and maybe hit that shiny thanks button. That tells YouTube you got value from this information, and then they can get it in front of other authors and readers like us. Now you can get back to writing your book.